The KDPG Sunday edition is brought to you by UPMC Health System. Now, from the two most trusted names in local news, KDPG Sunday edition with Stacy Smith and John Craig.
Good morning and welcome to the KDPG Sunday edition. Our discussion this morning is about the board that controls the property assessments for Allegheny County taxpayers. The board is split by political infighting and it could affect your taxes. The latest feuds are over property owners who get tax breaks without any proof that they are eligible, plus county assessors who may not be qualified for the job. Now, those are the two major areas of discussion today with our guests, Mike Suley. Mr. Suley is the vice chairman of the county's Assessment Appeals and Review Board. Joining me, as usual, is the editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, John Craig, for our questioning. And we should add at this moment, John, that we asked the chairman of this board to join us today. We did not hear back from him. And we also asked County Commissioner Larry Dunn to join us this morning, and he also chose not to join us.
It's very difficult to get anybody who's on the other side of this issue to speak in public, and at least in an uncontrolled environment.
Well, given that, we were going to have Mr. Suley with us this morning. And Mr.
So we have
Suley,
to work on him.
We'll have to work on him. We're going to have to beat him up here and see what we can get out of him and whatever.
It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning. The question would be, all this infighting, this cannot be good for the public.
Well, again, I don't know if we should be judged on the bickering or the fighting. I think maybe we should be judged on how we vote and the policy decisions that is the sum of what we are over the last 2 years.
Well, aren't those policy decisions really based on politics in the long run?
I believe so, yes.
And one of the things people don't know, how many of you are there?
There are 7 board members.
Okay, and you're split right now 4-3?
We were until recently. There's a new board member, and I don't want to speak for that board member and how that new member will vote.
But up until the new board member...
I was in the minority.
And it was 4-3, and people who are close to Larry Dunn were in charge.
Yes.
Right, and they have absolute charge too, don't they?
Yes.
So if you have an assessment and it comes up to, board members actually change assessments, don't they?
We raise them, lower them, or keep them the same.
And you do them you're personally yourself?
Yes, last year I had over 1,000 hearings, appeal hearings. Yes.
And as Stacy's question to you was, what are you guys fighting about?
Well, there are 2 issues here. One is who controls the department, the administration of the department. And then, until recently, I believe it was the other 4 members. And we have 1 supervisor and manager for every 8 employees. We should be doing a much better job than we are now. But a much greater issue is the countywide reassessment. I'm for the countywide reassessment. I've come out from the beginning. I signed my name on the contract. And the leader of the other faction, whom I believe is Mr. Kenneth Behrend, did not sign the contract along with Commissioner Dunn, and they have been the biggest critics.
And that contract, it was ordered by the court?
Yes, it was ordered by the court.
I want to get to the reassessment area in just a moment, but let's talk about what the first part of this whole thing. If we're talking about, you have people who are pro Larry Dunn and people who may have been pro Mike DeWitt on this board. That's basically what we're talking about, isn't it? We're talking Republican and Democrat, aren't we?
I don't want to align myself with any of the commissioners.
Nobody wants
what
to
I will say, pro-reassessment, pro-reassessment, anti-reassessment. Those are the 2 factions.
All right, now...
It's the issue, not aligning with people.
But let's take into account, then, the appeals that come before each commissioner. Don't you guys have a set guideline? Why would anybody be concerned whether their appeal goes to you or they go to the one that Mr. Dunn supported?
See, okay, I'm speaking for myself. If Mr. Smith, if you came in and on an appeal in front of me, I would base my decision on what your house is worth. That's the way the law is. That's the way it must be done. Commissioner Dunn and Mr. Behrend, who serves on the board, went around the county in the spring talking to people about their assessments and appealing their assessments. Mr. Dunn's message was he has four very good members on the board, and he has encouraged those members to lower assessments. My job is not to lower assessments, only if it's warranted.
So how do we get...
No, we have to add again, Mr. Dunn's not here to refute that charge. But anyway, go ahead.
No, but I was thinking, pressing on what you just said. So how does it get to you or somebody who's like Mr. Behrend? How does it determine who gets which appeal?
They're assigned by the chairman of the board.
So that's Stacy's question. What's the nature of the system?
The nature of the system, it's in an order based on how many reviews were accomplished by our assessors. For example, I don't know what areas you live in, but if it's Franklin Township and we have 40 reviews for Franklin Township, it is assigned to one board member. It's not in alphabetical order, but I've questioned that process as well.
I mean, so one of you members would have everybody...
Here, one area.
One area.
On one day.
So
40 hearings in a day.
So really politics then will have nothing to do with this, unless that area happens to be one that has traditionally voted one way or the other.
Well, I've questioned this process in the past. My results versus Mr. Behrend's results. We were on both ends of the spectrum. I reduced 30% of my assessments for calendar year 1998. Mr. Behrend reduced 70% of his assessments. Same county, similar homes. I did a review on the sum of our results, and what I found that we were reducing sale prices, Stacy, by 18%. In other words, if you paid $100,000 for your home, we considered that as a part of our criteria for market value, but we reduced the market value to $82,000.
No.
That's not good.
Well, so you're
that's
saying
a problem. We're
you're
not
saying
doing
the house
job.
should be assessed at what the sale price is then?
No, I'm not saying that. You can look at the sale price, but you have to look at other similar homes in the neighborhood and see if they're selling in the same range. Sometimes there are aberrations. I do chase sales.
Well, let me get back to Stacy's question.
Sure.
You're from Mount Lebanon.
Right.
You used to be in the real estate business in
Yes,
Mount Lebanon.
20-some years.
Now, I don't know whether Mount Lebanon's your territory, but you get a whole lot of cases from Mount Lebanon.
Right.
Is there a member of the board who sits on the Mount Lebanon cases?
Absolutely not.
There is not?
No, there's a rotation.
Okay.
And that's the way it should be.
Okay, it's rotated.
Right.
And what comes up to this person who's got these cases from Mount Lebanon, the whole cluster of them, is the recommendation from field assessors. They describe the problem.
Right, and the assessor gives testimony, and the owner does too.
Right, and then you make a decision.
Correct.
Because you're on Mount Lebanon this week or this month, right?
I haven't.
Okay, but what I'm trying to get at is that you make your decision, and it turns out to be that you do 70% of you side with the assessor and 30% you reduce. Say
whatever.
All right, yes. Okay. But then we go to Mount Lebanon 2 or 3 months later. There's somebody else sitting on the appeals, and it's reversed. So what you have in
I've seen evidence of that.
So what you have in Mount Lebanon is you have, depending on who is the assessor or the board member who's hearing the appeals, you have the same field assessors making the same recommendations, but one board member does this and one member does that in the same neighborhood.
Correct.
Now, doesn't that drive people crazy?
Drives me crazy. My argument all along has been I look at the property and I make a decision on what the market value of the individual property is. Some of the board members look at assessments on the street. And if those assessments are wrong, I cannot base my judgment on bad assessments.
What we're getting to here then is there's no set in stone criteria.
Correct. You are right.
Then we should throw the whole thing out, start all over again.
Well, we, the 7 board members, should get our act together and come up with firm rules on what the criteria should be.
Who should set these rules?
We, the board members.
Well, shouldn't the legislature maybe do this? Shouldn't somebody else get involved here, take the politics out of it, so to speak?
Well,
if you can ever do that with the state legislature.
Well, no, the state legislature in 1942 already came up with the rules, and I honestly believe that some of us are playing by the rules as written by the legislature. They can write whatever they want, and some board members may follow the rules, and
so
some
you're saying
may not.
the rules are there, but it's how they're interpreted?
Correct. Yes. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying my job is to find market value on the individual property of that individual taxpayer coming in at that time, not to look at other assessments in the street. I'm the Allegheny County assessor, not the Mount Lebanon or the Franklin Park or the
Well, no, wait, I
Monroeville
don't.
assessor.
I'm sorry to be a little confused here, but a
Sure.
moment ago you said you take a look at what the sale price of the home is, and then you also see how the other homes are selling in the area. Now you're saying,
Correct.
well, somebody else is taking a look at the other assessments on the same street, and that's not right.
I'm sure of that.
Well, I guess I'm really dumb here because I'm just a guy who pays the taxes on my home. I don't understand what you're saying. What the
The
difference
sale
is between
price, two variables. One is the sale price is closer to market value than the assessments. Most people know the assessments in Allegheny County are low and out of whack.
out of whack.
Those are two issues, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
You,
That's a fact.
yeah, and you think everybody basically in the end should be paying more than what they're paying.
No, I'm saying people...
If you feel if they're too
no.
low, then they're not paying enough.
I'm saying that people should be paying their fair share, and it should be based
Well,
on...
no, you just stated that the assessments were too low.
Yes.
Okay,
As
then
determined...
people should be paying more is what you're saying.
No. What I'm saying is some people are above that and below that. The only state agency that monitors our activity is the State Tax Equalization Board. They've determined that our assessments are low, 20% below what they should be based on sales from 1997. That's the only criteria I use, is what the State Tax Equalization, they're saying the assessments are low. If I raise the assessments and they're fair and equitable, that doesn't necessarily mean that the taxing bodies should take advantage of a windfall. In fact, there is protection right now.
Well, they're doing it already.
Well, no, there is protection right now in Allegheny County under a state law that was signed in December of '98, signed by Governor Ridge, which will protect property owners in Allegheny County from potential windfalls that the taxing jurisdictions will get from
Including
the
the school
reassessment.
districts?
All of them, yes. School districts, municipalities, county, etc. The windfall cannot exceed 5% of what the revenues were the previous year.
All right, well,
so that is in place. So what may happen is if I raise the assessments, I will lower some. We're projecting that a third will go up, a third will go down, a third will stay the same.
I don't know how, but I always know that mine's going to be in the third that's going up. And we'll be back with Mr. Suley as the KD-PG Sunday Edition continues. Welcome back to the KD-PG Sunday Edition. Our John Craig is with me as always, and our guest this morning is Mike Suley. He is the Vice Chairman of the Allegheny County Property Assessment Board. John?
I want to take a different tack, and that has to do with another thing, is issue, and that is the quality of the information you get upon which you make your decision. Right. What are the qualifications of the people who are field assessors?
Well, state law says that they must be appointed by the 7-member board.
That's it?
That's it.
Are there any other qualifications?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So how do you decide who you pick?
I'm speaking for myself, not for the board. I would, at entry level, I would want someone with prior real estate experience.
Okay.
It'd be easy to train that person because they've already had real estate education.
All right. And how many of them are there?
Right now we have 21 active assessors.
And how much are they paid?
In the $20,000 range.
So it's not a very good job?
You can decide from what I just said.
The $20,000. Is it a part-time job or a full-time job?
Some of the assessors have other jobs.
Okay. Now, when you get something like the USX building, which is a major component, of the real estate picture of Pittsburgh, the city, correct. How is somebody at that level in a position to make a qualified estimate?
That's a very good question. We do have one assessor for the Central Business District downtown, and these are very important decisions. Now,
okay, what is he or she? Is he or she the same thing? You pick them and they get paid $20,000 a year?
Yes.
Why, given the stakes involved? Because when these corporations come in to lower, to appeal their assessments, they assume they have lawyers and the rest, very high-powered people.
Yes, they
isn't it kind of a one-sided argument?
Personal opinion, yes, it's a mismatch at times.
Because, again, you guys, why do you permit, I don't know what percentage of assessments is commercial property, and all the politics is people's houses. But people's houses, what do they make, about 2/3?
Well, based on what we did last year, 50% of the reductions were commercial. assessments.
But I'm talking about that if you take the total assessed property in Allegheny County,
Right.
isn't it about
25%
commercial
is commercial.
and
Of
industrial?
the volume, yes.
And that's it. That is the total dollars.
I'm being told by Sabre Systems it may be 40% when they're finished with.
That's what I
but,
think too. I think
yeah,
it's much higher, and
I agree.
all the static and yapping is about people's houses.
Right.
But insofar as you can significantly keep under assessing corporate industrial property, you also, a byproduct of that is not just that it's unfair, but it also puts a higher load on the residential property, because there, in a sense, there's a lot more room to play around with, because the industry people are very smart, and they're not going to pay one more nickel than they have to, are they?
That's right.
And you guys, very rarely, can stand up to them, can you?
Well, it depends.
Well, you look at the city of Pittsburgh. How long have you been on the board?
2 years.
Okay, and how many of those major downtown office buildings have their assessments reduced?
Many of them have.
And it's been at least for the
Yes.
90s, it's been a pattern of behavior.
Correct.
And
yes.
what that does is for the city, it puts all sorts of pressure on all other real estate.
Decreases the tax base. Yes, I agree.
And so you have this whipsaw effect.
Right.
Is where you've got politicians trying to throw bones to taxpayers by just saying we're going to freeze your residential assessment
Craig,
the same way the industrial tax base is going down, right?
That's correct.
Well, how can you defend that?
Well, I'm not defending it. I'm saying it's abysmal. We have to raise the qualifications, and I brought that question up this week. Our director just this week announced that he is placing some of the residential assessors into the commercial field, and he is hiring 5 new assessors tomorrow, Monday.
Do you think that real estate assessments and the quality of real estate assessments has any role in the attractiveness of a region to business?
Absolutely, yes. It's part of the fiber of the community.
Okay, do you think that the way industrial real estate is assessed and taxed in Allegheny County is hurting Allegheny County's economic development?
Absolutely.
So why don't you do something about it?
I know I'm only speaking for myself, Mr. Craig, and I want to. I'm going up against something that's bigger than me at this time, and if I win, I think the people of Allegheny County will win. We must upgrade the qualifications for entry-level assessors.
Okay,
we cannot determine their salary.
Okay, what would you do to increase
commercial assessor? I would want 5 years experience in commercial real estate. I would pay them a heck of a lot more than $20,000 a year, but under state law, I don't have any say-so in what they're paid. The salary board does.
Let me ask you a related question.
Okay.
Why not farm it out? That is, are there other cities that they don't employ the assessors? They recognize this is fairly expensive, fairly qualified, highly specialized work concern. It says let's employ a company and let them do it for us.
Good question. I attempted to do that last year. Talked to some appraisers in Allegheny County, and the only problem with that is the conflict. They've already placed appraisals for their clients who came before us to obtain reductions and to represent us and the other side, and they just didn't want to get involved in it.
Because most assessors people on this program who said, the only person who really can assess an Allegheny County house is an Allegheny County. I mean, what the heck? You just can't come here and assess this thing first. You need a local person. What do you think?
Well, I want to go back to another aspect here, because I'm a little confused between the two of you, because you're both in agreement on something here, and you asked Mr. Suley just a moment ago that the way the assessment is done right now on commercial property hurts business growth in this. Is that what you just stated?
What I said was that you see a pattern here where you have people who are doing the assessing for the government are no match for the people on the other side, and so when you have property, industrial property assessed in effect by people who have.
And you're saying it's underassessed.
I didn't say it was underassessed. I just said that in the sense is that that they have a great disadvantage when arguing when some guy comes here from New York with his lawyer to talk about getting his building, which he's just spent $40 million for, reduced. And that happens all the time. I think it's also true, less percent of industrial land.
We have all these TIFs and all these other things going on, too.
But that's irrelevant to what we're talking about.
What I'm going to, though, is the point and that is that for this area to continue to grow, businesses want lower taxes. And isn't the board and aren't these assessments appeals just going right along with that to make sure businesses stay here?
There are two issues here. My own personal opinion, maybe we are overtaxed, but we are underassessed. They're two separate issues, and I think most people mix the two, and that's a mistake.
You're saying the millage could be lowered, but the assessment should go up?
Well, I believe everyone should pay their fair share. I don't believe...
I
know, I keep saying that.
Fair
let me
share
share with you one thing. The commercial properties, Stacy, these people come in, they're sophisticated, they have lawyers, they have appraisers, they come in and they can take advantage of the lower ratio, which is 20.3% for this year. Then the reason they can take advantage of that, even if the market value hasn't changed from last year, is because we, the Allegheny County Property Assessment Board, has not aggressively been assessing. The last countywide reassessment was in 1994.
And there's one underway now.
Right, court ordered.
And that's being done not by you, it's done by people from outside Allegheny County.
No, well, Sabre Systems.
You've hired a company to come in and do it.
Yeah, that's another misnomer. 95% of their employees live and work in the area.
Okay, of course.
So
obviously, because you don't want to commute here from New York to do this work. But in the case, it's a company that his business is assessing property. It assesses property all over the country, does it not?
Mass appraisal, yes.
And
20 states.
And aren't there computer programs that are integral to this work now?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
and they are using these computer programs here.
Right. That is correct.
Now, this is going to result perhaps in different assessments.
Yes.
Is that going to result in more accurate assessments?
Yes, because the first phase right now is collecting data. Most of the data that the county assessment system has now is incorrect. We haven't looked at a lot of these properties in 20 years.
Now, Les, we got very little time.
Yes.
And you say a third, when you get accurate assessments and you get to paying your taxes, a third of them are going to go up, a third are going to go down, and a third are going to stay the same?
That's the general rule,
Do you promise?
Yes.
Okay, we got it settled then. Probably yours are going to stay the same, his are going to go down, mine are going to go up.
Depends on where they are now.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the KDPG Sunday edition. We'll be back in just a moment. Well, John, nobody likes taxes. A lot of people say this whole system is just not fair.
And also they say it's impossible to assess accurately. And my answer is, well, it's not impossible to appraise accurately. Every mortgage is based on an appraisal. Every bank loan and everything in Allegheny County that has a mortgage is on an accurate appraisal. And you can do the same thing with an assessment.
Yes, perhaps then what everybody should look at is the millage that people have to pay.
Which is the taxes.
Exactly.
Those persons are Louis J. Sparvero, Rose H. Liptak, and Michael J. Suley.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Counselor, I just want to point out that I think I've read Bert Goodman's analysis of this issue, and it may be that we have to stagger the terms. It's my opinion. I want to hear your legal opinion.
Yeah, I'm pleased to say we've researched the matter thoroughly, and in the submission, all these persons are submitted to serve for 6-year terms. The law specifically states that when they're being appointed to fill expired terms, that their term is to be 6 years, and staggering those terms is not necessary.
So your opinion is that this is your official legal opinion?
That's my official legal opinion. That's correct. That they're all to be appointed for 6-year terms, and that staggering the terms is not necessary or really permitted in this case.
I would have a different legal opinion, but I will take yours as the word of the county. Thank you.
We have researched it thoroughly.
I'd like to ask Rose Liptak and Mike Suley to please approach the podium.
Raise your right hand. Yeah. I solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth. And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. but I am not to pay or contribute, or promise to pay or contribute, either directly or indirectly, any money or other valuable thing to procure my appointment, that I will not knowingly receive, directly or indirectly, any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office, other than the compensation allowed by law. Congratulations.
Policy show on the road in tonight's Neighborhood Newswire at 11. In Bellevue, commissioners hosted a public hearing at Northgate High School. They also swore in the Board of Property Assessments and Review. Oakland City Council held a public hearing.
Back on Night Talk, property assessments in Allegheny County. It's a horrible, confusing mess. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of things with Ken Behrend of the Board of Property Assessments and also Mike Suley on the same board, the vice chairman of the aforementioned board. Welcome to Night Talk, you guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. What are you and why do you exist? And should we all fear that you exist because we may have to pay a lot of money to you?
No, quite simply, the state legislature saw fit that we have an independent board of 7 members, and there's a state statute which created us. All of us must have a minimum of 5 years experience. I believe I have...
In assessing property?
No. There's contractors, realtors, stockbroker, and an attorney. So you get a variety of backgrounds and influences into this board.
So what must you have 5 years experience in?
Whatever is your field of expertise.
Oh, so did the statute get specific, like you have to have a lawyer and a
yes
candlestick maker and a baker?
Yeah, precisely.
Okay.
Precisely.
All right, and so what are you?
I'm the attorney on the board.
And you?
Real estate broker.
That's great. And you used to be supervised by the county commission until the courts deemed that was improper?
That's correct.
Well, apparently there's been some changes over time in history. At one time the board was independent and something occurred. The commissioners supposedly were in charge for a while, and then Judge Weddick last April ruled that the statute does say we're independent and we should be independent, and we've been that way ever since.
And that's good because we don't want the county commissioners saying to you guys, hey, my buddy lives down the street, put the fix in.
That's correct.
Theoretically.
You do not want political influence in the assessment process in the county.
All right.
For those reasons.
Do you feel it is totally devoid now of political influence, or is that impossible?
Well, I feel it's completely devoid at this point. Once Judge Weddick declared that the assessment board was independent, at that point a year ago there were only 4 board members. Now we have a full 7 board members. We're all independent,
wait a minute.
free-thinking.
I think it is, I'm sure you are.
Yeah,
I think it is starting to come clear now. So was this declaration that you must be independent made in response to the announcement by Dunn & Cranmer that all properties would be frozen?
Not really. It was
a separate issue.
It was part of that lawsuit, but it wasn't because of that lawsuit.
Okay.
I mean that was a vehicle to an end. But an issue was raised in that lawsuit about the board truly should be autonomous, and that the board should have made the decision whether or not to freeze the assessments, not the commission.
Because the judge ruled the commissioners didn't have the power.
Well, what the judge ruled was in 1942, the state legislature said that the assessment board must be an independent, autonomous body. And for some reason over the years, it just evolved into...
All right, now, the judge also ordered what? He said, okay, look, the commissioners aren't making the decision. He said, hence, since they can't make the decision, they can't order you guys to freeze property assessments, so that's all out the window.
Right.
And what else did he say?
He told us to do our job, which is to revise and equalize assessments on an annual basis. And he took jurisdiction over Allegheny County over the next 3 years. He will dictate basically the process, the methodology, and the procedure.
And is Larry Dunn still appealing that? That is that the judge, he contends that the judge cannot take control?
Larry Dunn lost that appeal.
Oh, that's over and done with, okay.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
We don't,
Yeah. All right. So now, many people had a deadline by which to file an appeal. That deadline has passed. Who are those people, and are they just out of luck now?
Good.
Well, essentially, everyone in the county had to file an appeal by March the 2nd. That's the way the state statute, excuse me, determines when is the date. It's the last day.
And by the way, if all their property was frozen, what are they appealing? Have they all already received new assessments?
No.